What's that? Did it speak? Our own version. I think that's right.
Sorry. Absolutely.
Do you want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Hi. Yes. Of course. Yep. Yep. We have a little village update in opposite. I'm sorry, your first name? Alan. Okay. Yeah, maybe just like right here. Yeah. Yeah. Ready? Okay, I think it's time we get started, everyone. If they could take their seat, please. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Andy Lee, the president of the West Barnstable Civic Association. I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, and a special thank you to the candidates. We realize this is a really very busy time for you, and we appreciate you coming out tonight. I'd like to introduce you to the other officers on the board. Ed J., Vice President, Bob Stolte, Treasurer, Maria D'Amelio is not here tonight, Nancy Meager, immediate past president, and our Hall of Famer, Hank Farnham. And our directors, John Britton, membership chairman, and also the timekeeper for tonight, so he's going to keep us honest. Dan Dewey, Dave Kern, Dolores Shermer, George Zoto, and Dan Felix Johnson. Before I turn the floor over to our state representative, Steve Zaros, I ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Steve Zaros, the floor is yours.
Everybody, welcome to West Barnstable. It's beautiful here. I live right around the corner, and I'm proud to say I went over the bridge, and we actually have a brand new parapet finally done. It looks beautiful. So the east side is done. Now they're switching over to the west side, and they'll get that done hopefully in a few months. But I stand here in front of you as your state representative if you live in West Barnstable or Marston's Mills or anywhere in Sandwich or half a Bourne. 45,000 people. 2 years ago, I was running for office, and there was a lot to learn. And I'm very grateful for those of you that supported me, and even if you didn't, it's wonderful to be in this position. I give a shout out to my fellow elected officials that are in the room and those that are running. It's really hard to do this. You try to make your best decisions. For me, I serve with my heart. I try to examine every issue and what does my heart tell me to do. And that's what we do. We had an incredible year and a half. My first year in office, the State House was closed because of COVID. And this year is the end of the second year. And it's been wonderful to be in such a beautiful building. So keep that in mind. That's the people's house. That's your house. And I get to work in there with Rep. Tim Whalen and anyone else that really earns your trust, that you elect to be in that building. It's beautiful. So please come and visit. If you'd ever like to take a tour, I love to show it off. And think about this building itself. Imagine how many meetings have been in this building and what's been talked about in this building. Similar to the State House. It's a beautiful building. It's kind of like working in a museum. I love Massachusetts. This is where freedom was born. When we say the pledge, it means a lot to me as an American and also a Gold Star father. You know, I sent a son to war, and I've never seen him since he gave me a hug. So the flag means a lot. Freedom means a lot. Being your state rep means the world to me. We did a lot in Boston. There's so many bills that we passed, a lot of good things, and there's more to come. And that's my job 2 years, for the next 2 years. But at this point, I was told to keep it to 2 minutes, so I did, I hope. But there's so much coming. Remember, we have 2 new bridges that we're going to build. Someone has to pay for those and design those. Those are in my district. And wastewater and drinking water, housing, jobs. I'm sure all the candidates here will touch on that. That's our world. And I love doing it. I'm proud to be your state representative. And I appreciate you all taking the time to come here to West Barnstable and be in this building and really do your service to listen to these candidates and decide which one that you'd like to support. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Steve. It's always a pleasure to have you at our meetings. And now a brief word from our Precinct 11 Town Councilor, Chris Clark.
Thank you, Andy. And thank all of those here and who aren't here, who make our beloved village the special place it is in which to live. In addition to attending the town council meetings, I work with the West Barnstable Civic Association board with local issues, and I attend meetings to which I serve as a town council liaison. I have successfully advocated for a generator for the West Barnstable Community Building. The what? You can't hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Is this better? Thank you. So I have successfully advocated for a generator for the West Barnstable Community Building, which was approved in the last budget by the Town Council. It is the hope that someday we can coordinate the use of that building for a warming station in times of prolonged power outages like we had about a year ago. On another front, after being informed by our flag warden, Steve Wallace, that there were some serious structural problems with the flagpole at the village green right here, I brought it to the attention of town staff at the end of the last fiscal year. The town then replaced that older flagpole with a spiffy new one and will continue to supply flags for that pole going forward. Steve Wallace remains the faithful volunteer custodian for that flagpole, and for that we are a grateful community for his efforts. The town staff was especially responsive this year to our request to support this summer's West Barnstable Village Festival. I particularly noticed that they took extra time and trouble to replace rails in our split rail fence by the old Selectmen's Building and to treat the former bushy poison ivy vines climbing on the nearby trees. When there's news to tell, I try to get news out in my regular e-newsletter with local and town information. There's a couple of copies in the back, and if you'd like to sign up, I have a clipboard with my email address on there. Or you may phone me or look me up on the website to get on that list. And you're welcome, of course, to contact me by email or phone with any other local concerns. Also, it has been called to my attention by a constituent that for a request that candidates please remove their signs from public property. There is an ordinance in our town for campaign signs not to be proliferated on town property or on not private property, town and state property. So for that, it's a heads up and a polite request. I am proud to serve as your town councilor, and I'll be happy to take questions after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let's see. Membership chair, John Britton. Are there any updates on memberships? Okay.
We actually, if you do join, pay your dues, it's good till the end of next year, so you get a little grace period of a couple of months. We do have paperwork if you want to grab us, Nancy or myself at the end, and we can fill out that form and we'll put you in the book.
Okay. And for those of you interested in joining the WCA, please visit our website, westbarnstable.org. The website also includes links to other organizations within West Barnstable. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to, first of all, Nancy, I think you have a message to us from Julian Sear. Would you like to say that first? I'm sorry, I jumped over. Village updates. Joanne Wallace, did you have some update on the tree lighting? Would you like to share with us?
Well, it's a go. It's going to be the first Sunday in December, always the first Sunday in December, which is December 4th. Starts at 5 o'clock on the Village Green. 5:30 we assemble here to give the story of Christmas. And the refreshments, we're still working on that. So December, we'll have a different type of gathering. It's going to be outdoor refreshments.
Great.
So December 4th, starting at 5 on the Village Green.
Thank you, Joanne. And Meeting House Farm, Ellen, did you have some words? There you are.
And I have a few, thanks. A few announcements. First of all, we are having an introductory first guided group walk at the Labyrinth, at our newly constructed Labyrinth, this Saturday, the 22nd, weather permitting, but so far it's looking good. And it'll be at 11 a.m. And then coming up in November, the 23rd, which is the Wednesday, I believe, just before Thanksgiving, our pie and bake sale will be at the community building from 8 to 11. And let me just, you probably already know this, but that we sell out really fast. People are waiting at the door at 8 o'clock, if not earlier, to get in and buy some goodies. Then we are having a holiday green sale. That is Saturday and Sunday, December 10th and 11th, from 10 to 3, and that is at the farm. Oh, and I'm not sure if I mentioned that the bake sale is at the community building. It's not at the farm. Okay, and lastly, we are having a winter solstice celebration, and that will be Wednesday, December 21st at 6:30 at the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, Nancy, you had some notes from senators here.
Oh, go ahead, Nance. You have something to add? Please do.
On this Friday,
Anthony Sammarco, who's written 60 books, mostly about history, is going to be here and talking about the history of cranberries, and that really relates to this building and to this road. A.D. Makepeace, who is said to have brought cranberries to America's table, just up the road, the largest purveyor of cranberries within Ocean Spray Company is the Makepeace family. So anyway, come to that. It's this Friday, 7 p.m. That's enough.
I had the privilege of communicating with the candidates, and I have to say that you are the nicest, most responsive group of people I have ever worked with. Everyone was kind and forthcoming, and we know how busy you are, so we appreciate that. But one particular candidate, Senator Julian Sear, was unable to attend, and he sent a statement. So you have to, I'm Julian. I'm reading this as Julian. Unbiased. I regret that I cannot be with all of you in West Barnstable tonight. I have a prior commitment, and I'm honored to work hard for West Barnstable and each of 20 communities that comprise the Cape and Islands District. Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket face steep challenges from a lack of attainable housing to a $4 billion wastewater problem to the climate crisis and a dire need for additional mental health and additional services. Since being elected to the state Senate, I have not shied away from these big issues, and I have worked collaboratively to solve them. Some examples. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, I brought together county and community and town officials, healthcare providers, and business leaders to chart a path through the uncertainty. We stood up to the challenge and executed a robust COVID-19 testing and vaccine program for our region when the state left us behind, saving lives and livelihoods. Too many young people on Cape Cod cannot stay and make a life here because of the unaffordable cost of housing, and older adults deserve to be able to downsize to stay in the communities they've helped build. And when you live in a peninsula or an island, employers need local workforce. Just this year, I brought back $4.8 million to the Cape and Islands to build the housing that seniors and young families need. And I'm fighting for a transfer fee on luxury home sales to fund year-round housing development so working families can afford to build a life and thrive. Like most Cape Codders and Islanders, the twin epidemics of opioids and mental health have touched me personally. As chair of the Committee on Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery, I've championed policies that save lives and increase funding for recovery services. I authorized a sweeping mental health reform bill to strengthen insurance coverage for those in need of mental health care and provide speedy access to inpatient treatment for those in crisis. The landmark bill was signed into law in August by Governor Baker. It is the strongest mental health parity law in the country. I also spearheaded record levels of funding for mental health and addiction services, including $400 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds dedicated to mental health. The Cape and Islands are uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of changing climate and environmental degradation. I'm a champion of clean energy and efforts to reform the electric grid through expansion of renewable energy. I helped pass laws that put Massachusetts on a path to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 and build new solar and offshore wind projects, meeting our future energy needs while staving off the worst effects of climate change. Currently, our electricity prices are unaffordable because of our dependence on fossil fuels. Wind and solar will save money and stabilize prices for consumers. I've also secured millions of dollars to restore estuaries, repair or harden our coastal infrastructure, and expand storm water and drainage to prepare us for worsening storms and flooding. To protect our water quality, Cape Codders face a $4 billion price tag to clean up nitrogen pollution in our embankments and estuaries. I drafted and passed legislation to establish the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund to provide $1 billion in safe relief for wastewater projects across the region, including upgrades to Title V septic systems. In its first 2 years, the fund has already realized millions of dollars in property tax relief. Environmentalists and business leaders have hailed it as the most significant legislation for the region in a generation. Forever chemicals are polluting our drinking water and pose a threat to our health. I led an interagency task force that put forward a roadmap to phase out PFAS and ban its sale in Massachusetts, and secured $250,000 to fund a firefighting foam take-back program to protect the health of our firefighters. I'm also working to keep Holtec from dumping radioactive water in Cape Cod Bay. And I've worked closely with the town of Barnstable and your fantastic town councilor, Chris Clark, from coastal flooding to shellfish propagation and addressing the malfeasance of the trash train. Chris has been an invaluable partner, and we believe that too. I have a track record of accomplishment, and I've delivered for my constituents. I'm proud of what we have been able to do together over the past 6 years that I've been in office, and I look forward to making progress on the challenges that still lie ahead. I remain committed to working tireless for you and doing everything I can to improve our quality of life in this most special corner of the Commonwealth. I ask for your vote on November 8th to continue to have the opportunity to be your voice on Beacon Hill. Sincerely, Julian Sear.
Thank you, Nancy. I'd like to introduce our first candidate running for state senator, Christopher Lawson.
Thank you, Senator Sear. Appreciate that. I do just want to comment, I'm not going to harp on it, but it's become a pattern during this campaign that Senator Sear has not appeared at community events like this and has declined debates. And I really feel that that's disappointing as a constituent myself. I've never met Senator Sear. I've been all over the Cape and Islands, meeting people, talking to people, different events, and I haven't run into him at all. So I'm a little disappointed as a constituent that he's consistently too busy for these events when we have other elected officials in attendance. Like I said, I don't want to harp on that. I just wanted to comment. To introduce myself, Christopher Lawson, running for State Senate, Cape and Islands District. This is my first run for political office. I'm a mechanic by trade. My father and I run a small business in Hyannis, long-standing. My grandfather was there before that. I grew up in Marston's Mills, raising my 4 kids there with my wife. Our 2 youngest just started school at West Parishes here. The older 2 are in Barnstable Public Schools. I graduated Barnstable High School 2007, went off to college in Louisiana, LSU. I got a degree in anthropology. I had dreams of being an archaeologist in high school, but that didn't pan out, so I came back up here after traveling overseas a little bit. But I came back up here, worked for Highline Cruises for a while, got a good connection to the islands, understand the economy of the islands a lot better, having worked in that industry firsthand. And then I got into the family business, fixing cars. And, I'm just concerned, like I think a lot of people are, on the Cape, the islands, across the state, across the country, about the direction our communities are going in, the direction our state's going in. A lot of things are affecting us hard right now, more than ever, economically, socially, environmentally. The housing crisis has certainly been really getting worse consistently year after year after year. And that's been acutely felt in recent years because of the pandemic and other forces. But the situation was already dire before that. That just made it worse. So housing is certainly something I would like to work on. There's no silver bullet for that, but it's been put off for years and years and years. We need new solutions, new ideas, a fresh set of eyes on these things. We need to get money back to the people. I'm glad the state's going to be sending back tax refunds next month to all of us in accordance with 62F. And I know there's some rumblings about changing that law, but I support it fully. I want to see that money back in the hands of the people where it belongs. And I think that really exposes the fact that we can cut back on taxes and regulations and fees on the state level and keep that money in the hands of the people to begin with. So those are certainly things I look forward to working on to help the people in all of our communities. There's a number of issues with our schools, energy. I would rebuke the idea that solar and wind energy is cheaper than what we have right now, but those are all things we can work on, and it's all important for the Cape moving forward, and I look forward to working on that for you. And I look forward to earning your vote November 8th. Happy to answer questions after all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, I'd like to introduce running for district attorney. We have Robert Galabois and Dan Higgins. Robert, you're up first if you're here.
There's a traffic backup on Route 6.
Well, we'll have Dan come up first, and Dan, you're up. Okay.
Thank you. So good evening. Thank you, everyone, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I live in West Barnstable here with my wife and my son. My wife, Elizabeth, is also a local attorney. She grew up on the Cape here in Comaquid. My father-in-law and mother-in-law here tonight. Mother-in-law was a teacher at BWB for, I believe, about 30 years. Father-in-law in the banking profession for various banks across the Cape for that same period of time. They live in Comaquid. We've been in West Barnstable here for 3 or 4 years. We've since moved here, got married, and we have a COVID baby, as a popular term now. Our first son, Charlie, who was really a great thing to come out of the COVID period for us to have the birth of our first son. And my wife had to leave here tonight. She was out front, but someone has to put Charlie to bed while I'm here talking to you good folks. I grew up to parents both in the FBI, full-time FBI agents. They were attorneys and went straight into the FBI after law school. They worked each for 30-plus years in the FBI. We moved around a little because of that. I was born in Springfield. My parents worked out of the Manhattan office, later out of Boston, New Hampshire, even Hawaii at one point, my father at the end of his career. And I have an appreciation for public service. My family was never very political growing up. They were professional public servants. I spent a lot of time, because of my parents' profession, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And they have owned a house here on the Cape in Dennis since the 1950s, where my mother also grew up. I had the pleasure of growing up a lot with my grandparents, and that has left a mark on me. My grandfather, also a career FBI agent and a great role model. I came back to the Cape after going on to college and law school. I attended Boston College, graduated from BC, and I went on to go to law school at Suffolk University Law School. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a prosecutor. And what confirmed that for me is I was in what was called a prosecutor's clinic at Suffolk Law School. It was just a legal clinic. We weren't paid, but we got the ability to be assigned to courts and to work for a DA's office under a special rule. The dean and the Supreme Judicial Court had to sign off on you. And that helped confirm for me that that's how I thought I could help people and use my law degree to do it. I worked in Dorchester District Court. There were prosecutors there who trusted me after a period of time, after training me, and allowed me to try cases there, which was amazing. I hadn't even taken the bar yet. It really was. I moved here when I was offered a job after interviewing. I didn't know the district attorney, Michael O'Keefe. I didn't know anyone in the office, in fact. I applied in the blind, and I was very lucky. Number one, there were 12 people for one spot. Number two, when I was hired, I was told that my job was to do the right thing. I wasn't given a rule book. I wasn't given a playbook and what you'll do for each crime. I don't believe in that. Instead, I was given full discretion, and it was amazing, amazing at 26 years old, fresh out of law school, to be given that kind of discretion to help people. We're helping victims every day, standing up for them. And we're also helping defendants on low-level offenses when they'll work with us, and we use the court system to guide them to the treatment that they need. This job is a very human job, and that's why I have loved it for the past 13 years. So I've stayed in this job. Certainly was never for the money, I'll tell you that. $37,000 after law school debt. It doesn't really work financially speaking. It doesn't balance the books, I'll tell you. After 5 years here, I was lucky enough to buy a house for myself under a first-time homeowner program. Then I was lucky enough to meet my wife, and we bought a home together here in West Barnstable. I love this job. I love the profession I do. I've supervised a team of 10 prosecutors for about 7 years. I've supervised all of the district courts across the Cape and Islands. I've tried every type of case on Cape Cod here, including murder. I have spoken up for victims. I've had the private conversations in the back rooms about their emotions, about when they're too scared to testify, what has really affected them, sexual assault survivors, near-death experiences. This job is a moving job. You don't see it from us every day, because our job is to be level-headed in the courtroom and enforce the law and enforce reasonable penalties depending on what the crime is. Some people deserve to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Those who would harm Cape Codders violently, and those who traffic fentanyl on our streets and go after our vulnerable citizens who may have some depression in their life or pain in their life and are susceptible to substance use at that moment in their lives. Our job is to keep our finger on the pulse and prosecute crime to the fullest extent of the law. And when it's low-level offenses, human frailty, what we see a lot of in district court, it's our job to work with them, to get them back on their feet so that we never see them in the court system again. Many people have breaks with good lives. They are good citizens who live here on Cape Cod who make a mistake because of a death, a loss of a spouse, a child. They're going through a mental health break in their life that they've never experienced before. And our job is to recognize that and treat them very fairly. And we do that. We get people back on their feet. We want to prevent recidivism. That is the goal. And we want to punish violent crime and those who traffic fentanyl on the streets of Cape Cod. If I'm elected, I don't intend to be a political person. I intend to be a professional one. I believe this job, and the reason I'm running for it is because I love this job. And our job is to be in there working for you and working for this community to keep the community safe and to work with law enforcement to do so. I humbly ask for your vote. I would be honored to be your next district attorney, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, running for county sheriff, we have Donna Buckley and Timothy Wayland. Okay. Well, Donna, we'll let you, and then we'll jump in. Robert? Sorry, yeah, you're up.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Busy night. Time limit? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'll pay you a 4. You'll tell me 4? Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having this tonight. My name is Rob Galabois. Oops, sorry. Start over. Hi, everyone. Better? Okay. My name is Rob Galabois, and I'm one of the candidates for the district attorney's office. I want to say welcome to Dan as well, my opponent, and I'm in his kitchen, so to speak, being in his village here tonight. My wife, Nikki, and I live over in Barnstable Village. We are recent empty nesters, as both of our boys are now in college. We have our son, Max, a junior at BC, and our son, Cam, is a freshman at Duke. When we first got married in the mid-'90s in 1996, I remember the year, she's standing in the back of the room, we moved to the town of Bourne. And both of our kids were born here, right here on the Cape at Cape Cod Hospital. We began to settle into Bourne. I tried to give back to the community by joining the planning board. I served on the school committee and the finance committee. And we lived there for about 20 years. When we first got down here, shortly afterwards, then District Attorney Philip Rollins hired me as an assistant district attorney. And like many new prosecutors, I started at the district court level. I worked across the Cape and the Islands, all 5 district courts. And after about 3 years, I was promoted up to begin handling the major felonies in the office in Superior Court. Shortly after, about 5.5 years into the office, I left to go work for a firm in Barnstable Village. If you're familiar with the area, as many of you are, I was right above the Barnstable Tavern restaurant. And I worked there for about 5 years, again, focusing on criminal law. And then I took a leap of faith, and I opened up my own business. And I started my own practice, where I learned the value of creating a budget and operating inside of that budget. And I've been in that private practice since 2008. The nature of my practice ranged from the misdemeanor type offenses all the way through your homicide type of cases, where I've been the lead attorney on 15 murder and manslaughter cases. It's been the depth of my practice over 27 years that I've been offers me a unique vantage point in this particular race. I've practiced across the Cape and the Islands. I've practiced across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've been in over 70 of our 89 courthouses. And I've practiced in now about 12 different states. I've literally gotten to see district attorneys across the Commonwealth and the country try to transform whatever priorities they had into practice. Our campaign's been talking about the importance of community engagement. That is, you knowing who the DA's office, or what the DA's office does. We've come up with 3 specifics. On day 1, I'm going to hire a community engagement officer whose full-time position is going to be in our communities every single day, keeping a finger on the pulse and reporting directly back to me. We're going to form a community coalition. We gave it the name of DA and Us. There's going to be a chapter in every single town in the Cape and on each island The coalitions are going to be comprised of various elected officials from the school board, from the select board, from law enforcement, and from regular citizens. And we're going to have monthly meetings with our office. And the last one's the most popular. 65 employees in the DA's office. Every single one's going to commit to 4 hours of community service each month, including yours truly. Our office is going to work with the trial court to launch a mental health session where professionals in the field are going to come in and work with the struggling defendant to identify that core issue and treat that core issue, and therefore reducing recidivism and keeping us all safer. In a similar vein, we're also going to launch a veteran session. Veterans bring their own uniqueness when they're ensnarled in the criminal justice system. We're going to draw upon the huge veteran population that we have here in Barnstable County to work with that particular struggling veteran. The opioid crisis remains in the forefront of every single community. The large elephant in the room is the lack of residential treatment programs in the Mid-Cape to Lower Cape area and on each island. Our office is going to work with the local officials to try to launch residential treatment programs across the Cape and the islands. The flip side to that are those that are in the business of trafficking in the heroin and heroin and fentanyl. Our office will relentlessly pursue those that are in the business of pushing the poison into our neighborhoods. I'm going to end with this. We have a young DA's office in the sense that it's only been around for 48 years. It was created in 1974. But in the 48 years, the position we're running for, Mr. Higgins and I, is the elected position. The top assistant in the office is known as the first assistant district attorney. In the history of 48 years, there has never been a woman as the first assistant district attorney. I committed months ago that my first assistant will be a woman. Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, we're going to try this again. Running for county sheriff is Donna Buckley. Donna.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I want to thank the West Barnstable Civic Association for hosting this and allowing us the opportunity to introduce ourselves. I'm Donna Buckley, and I am running for Barnstable County Sheriff. I'm running because this election will set the direction of our sheriff's office for the next 6 years. Barnstable County needs a sheriff's office that will focus on care and custody of inmates, which is our sheriff's true role. I have the experience and the qualifications and the vision to bring a much-needed change of direction to our sheriff's office. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I live in Falmouth, and I have a great relationship with the community that I've adopted. I grew up in Peabody. I spend some time working with the Falmouth Village Association. I'm on the board of Neighborhood Falmouth, and I'm on the board of the Carousel of Light. My connection with my community is one of the reasons why I stepped forward to run, because our sheriff's office and the work that our sheriff's office does touches all of us in our community. I attended Suffolk Law School. I went to school at night so that I could work full-time to put myself through school. And when I graduated, I had the opportunity to work representing police officers, police unions, firefighters, and public school educators. I've been a lawyer for 37 years. And during the time that I had my own practice, I also had the opportunity to teach at the community college level. I taught criminal justice, law enforcement, criminal law, constitutional law, and developed a great understanding of our criminal justice system, both through my work with police officers, police unions, and in the education setting. For the last 4 years, I've worked as the general counsel at the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office. It has been, in my 37 years, one of the most fascinating jobs I have held. in my position, I have the ability to work in every aspect of our sheriff's office. The person who we elect as sheriff for the next 6 years is going to determine the direction of our sheriff's office. One of the most important challenges about this election is helping people understand what is the role of the sheriff. Our current sheriff has been there for 24 years. He's been elected by the voters 4 times. It's a 6-year term. So there hasn't been much discussion about what does our sheriff do. And we have to separate the ceremonial, historical role of the sheriff that existed before our cities and towns were incorporated to the present day challenges and the role of our sheriff. Our sheriff is responsible for running our jail. Our sheriff is responsible for correction, rehabilitation, and treatment. No one else in the criminal justice system does that job. Now let me share with you a couple of statistics. There is something in today's world that 90% of Americans agree upon. You're supposed to laugh. 90% of Americans believe that we are in the midst of a mental health crisis. And 70% of Americans agree that the opioid epidemic is a crisis. We see the face of that in our jail every day. 60 to 80% of the inmates in our jail are suffering from addiction and mental illness. Sure, there are some really evil, horrible people in the jail, but the majority of them are there for low-level offenses, and they are coming back into our communities. There is no dispute about the fact that they are coming back. This election will decide in what condition. When you think about the fact that there is a mental health crisis and an addiction crisis, we also have to understand that the current model of our sheriff's office spends only 1.7% of the budget on mental health. We need a sheriff's office that will attend to correction, rehabilitation, and treatment. And we need a sheriff that will prioritize our tax dollars to make sure that our sheriff's office is able to perform that mission. We cannot divert funds to things that do not support correction, rehabilitation, and treatment, because otherwise we are not safe. We need to look forward for the next 6 years, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And also running for County Sheriff is Timothy Whalen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I look around here, I recognize so many faces from my time serving in the Massachusetts State Legislature, representing the 1st Barnstable District, which includes Precinct 1. I've been blessed to be able to serve Comaquid and Barnstable Village and be able to join you for many of the community events. I recognize many of you not only through my advocacy and work here in the town of Barnstable with municipal government, but also who doesn't love the West Barnstable 4th of July parade, which is probably one of the best parades, not only on Cape Cod, but in the Commonwealth. I'll give you a brief bio, and then I'll tell you what my plans are going forward. So my brief bio is this. I'm 54 years old. I was born and raised in the city of Worcester. I'm a city kid. Went to inner city schools, and I was raised, my father was a school teacher, my mother was a nurse. They were wonderful, wonderful people. I will get to this later. They were the absolute salt of the earth. They were both functional alcoholics, and my mother had untreated manic depression, which made life as a child a little bit interesting at times, and we'll discuss that at the end. After high school, I went to college for a while, and I was trying to figure out my way in life, and I went to work at the age of 19 at the Worcester County Jail and House of Correction. I was hired by Sheriff Mike Flynn, and I started working at the age of 19, working in the maximum security block in the Worcester County House of Correction. That was a little bit of an eye-opener for a 19-year-old kid, and one of the things that I'll remember the most was seeing kids that I grew up with inside the facility as inmates, friends of mine, and knowing that as difficult as my life was at times, theirs was that much more difficult. That's a lesson that's never left me. While I was working at the Worcester County Jail and House of Correction, I took a leave of absence and I went to boot camp. I enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve, and I went to boot camp. I graduated boot camp Parris Island, South Carolina, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and then I joined Headquarters Company 25th Marines. Went back to work at the Worcester County Jail, and 1 year to the day later after that, I was activated during the first Gulf War. And we can all remember what happened during that time. I was blessed during my service, absolutely blessed. I never had to leave the country. We came this close, but I never did, and I was proud to operate in support of our troops that were serving overseas. Came back after that activation, and then I went into the Massachusetts State Police Academy in June of 1992. Went through the first academy class through the then new State Police Academy in New Braintree, and I served 21 years in the Massachusetts State Police. My family and I moved here to Cape Cod in 2007 when my wife was offered a job down here. And so we've been down here for 15 years. So I am a wash ashore. My shoes and socks are still a little wet from washing ashore here. We moved immediately to the town of Brewster, and I love the Mid-Cape and the Lower Cape region very, very much. 2013, I decided to leave the state police when I found that the first Barnstable district seat was going to be open. My good friend Cleon Turner was stepping down from the legislature, and I ran for his seat, and I was blessed with the endorsement of the voters, and I won that election, and I've now served 4 terms as the state representative from the first Barnstable district. I want to tell both of our district attorney candidates how much I appreciate hearing you folks talking about your commitment to making sure that people who traffic fentanyl are held to the strictest application of the law, because the fact that trafficking in fentanyl is even a thing is because I wrote the bill that made fentanyl trafficking illegal in the Commonwealth. I wrote the bill, and it was signed into law by Governor Baker, and it was a bipartisan bill that I filed alongside with my good friend, Democrat State Representative Paul Tucker from Salem. So after 8 years in the legislature, here I am before you now running for the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office. I have mentioned before, and you've heard in my bio, and you've probably seen the mailings and all the radio commercials that you want to turn off, but we're not as bad as the New Hampshire political ads yet. I have extensive experience in law enforcement. I've worn a badge, and I've walked a prison tier where I only had for my protection a radio. I've stopped cars out on Route 6 in the middle of the night. I've responded to domestic violence issues. I've used my body as a shield to protect the victims of domestic violence while waiting for my backup to show up on scene and and take the party into custody who was the batterer. I've done every aspect of law enforcement. I've dispatched. When you're in the state police, you're the dispatcher for the barracks as well. I've dispatched. The only service that the sheriff's office doesn't provide that I've never done is I've never gone out to a crime scene and processed it, and I was never a canine officer, although I did assist our canine officers on many, many calls. Steve Exaros is here nodding his head. We know what it's like chasing after the dog through the woods. It's not fun. I have been on the front line delivering those services that the good women and men of the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office deliver to protect and save you and serve you every single day. The canine services that the Sheriff's Department offers, those canine services saved the life of a despondent male in the town of Falmouth Sunday night. I will continue those canine services. The boat, the sheriff's boat that we hear so much about, we are going to examine and we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis of whether or not we're going to keep that boat. But what I will not do is I will not tell you that I'm going to decommission the boat on day one, because just at the end of the summer, that boat saved 2 lives. It pulled 2 people out of the water. I can't, and from my experience, my extensive experience in law enforcement, I don't think that it's good management when you have an asset that saved 2 lives to say, I'm going to rip that out of the water right away. I just got the 5-minute mark. I could go on for another 5 minutes. I'm a politician. Give me a microphone. I'll go on all day. I'll cut it off here. I just want to say thank you very much. It's an honor to stand here in front of you. I also want to say thank you to my friend Donna Buckley, who's been she has an excellent resume as well. I want to ask for your consideration. I'm going to ask for your vote, and I thank you for letting me go over a little bit in the time. It's a habit of mine. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Up next, running for county commissioner is Ronald Bergstrom. Ron, are you here? There you are.
That's an impressive pulpit up there. You get condemned from that pulpit, you're in big trouble. Well, everyone's given a little bit of a bio. I don't usually do this, but I'll follow up. I spent the first 18 years of my life in a walk-up apartment called a railroad flat. If you're familiar with the railroad flat, it's room, you have to go, to get from room 1 to 4, you have to walk through 2 and 3. The bathtub was in the kitchen. The doorway, there was a hook. On that hook was a key. And you took that key and you walked out into the hallway, down a little ways. There was a door that looked like a closet. What it was the toilet. And we shared that toilet with the apartment across the hallway. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, I don't want any sympathy. I'm telling you this because when I arrived on the Cape in 1975, 47 years ago, I immediately recognized how lucky I was to wind up here. It was just by accident. I was very, very lucky. And, you know, that attitude that I am fortunate to live here and that we're all fortunate to live here, that has been my guiding principle now over the many years, the 20 years I've spent in public service. I was a selectman for 12 years in my town of Chatham. I served on the assembly for 12 years, 8 years as speaker. I have also chaired the Regional Transit Authority, where it runs the bus services, and now I stand before you kind of unique. I am an incumbent. I'm actually serving right now, thanks to you and the voters here in Barnstable County. You know, the county does a lot of things, and I could, tick them off, but you're better off going on our website and looking barnstablecounty.org. But I'll mention a few things. First of all, the COVID crisis hit 2.5 years ago, and we immediately started testing centers throughout the Cape, in Falmouth, in Barnstable, in Orleans. And as soon as vaccines became available, we applied to the state. We managed to squeeze out about 1,200 at a shot, and eventually we vaccinated over 50,000 people. That's 50,000 people didn't have to drive to Gillette, didn't have to. I laugh because I was fortunate enough to get a vaccination at Outer Cape, which is not too far from me. And when I did get vaccinated, I called a friend of mine, John Ullman, who serves on the assembly, and I said, John, before I could tell him, he said, Ron, he said, I just got a vaccination appointment. He says, I have to go to Worcester. Okay? So that's what we went through. But we did everything we could with the resources we had, and as soon as we got the vaccines, they went into somebody's arm. We also do things like, well, we have a dredge, for instance, and the dredge is symptomatic of what we do as a county, because what we do is we consolidated services, and we do them far more cost-effectively than the individual towns could do them. And the dredge is an example. It goes around, it keeps the harbors open. If Falmouth or Barnstable or Chatham had to go out with a private dredge service, it would cost them 2 or 3 times as much as it cost us to do that. So we are a cost savings for the towns of Barnstable County. Now, I got a quote from a guy named Robert Johnson. I don't know who he was, but he must have been a wise man, because what he said was, the world is run by those who show up. Okay? And I don't know where my opponent is. Is he here? Anyway, so let's say he had a good excuse. I know that Julian couldn't be here and thing, but the fact is, and I really like to emphasize what I've done and the positive things I'd like to do going forward, but I have to talk about the election in a second. My opponent showed up from 2016 to 2020, but it didn't really matter because he didn't pay any attention to the job in front of him. He was more concerned with a soapbox, a microphone, to talk about issues that had nothing to do with local issues. Now, I'm a partisan guy. I'm running as a Democrat, okay? But I look for local answers to local issues that I always have, and I've worked with people on both sides of the aisle. I've tried to bring people together to make things happen. We as a county, because we are a regional agency, have managed to access Well, just in last year, $12 million in state and federal money to put toward things like coastal resilience, homeless prevention, drug and alcohol abuse, teen suicide. That's just in our Human Services Department and the Cape Cod Commission. So we do a lot of good work, and I'm proud of what we do, and I'm asking you to give me another 4 years as your county commissioner, because as lucky as I am to live here, lucky as we all are to live here, you have to give something back, you know? And my way of giving something back is to serve the public to the best of my ability and to try to bring people together to improve the quality of life for all Cape Codders. And I'm hoping that you extend to me the privilege of doing that for another 4 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. And lastly, running for representative in Congress, Jesse Brown, are you here? Yeah, Jesse.
Going off the pulpit thing here, I feel like I'm in a Sons of Liberty meeting right here in Boston. I started looking for Paul Revere in a little bit. So my name is Jesse Brown, and I'm running for the Massachusetts 9th Congressional District here in Massachusetts, which comprises of all the Cape and the Islands, so I'll leave it at that, but also the South Shore and South Coast. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, small business owner, and a co-founder of a nonprofit that helps veterans in need. But the thing I'm most proud of is that I'm a father of a 15-year-old little girl. Also, she's a young woman now, but she still always will be my little girl. Little bio of myself. So I grew up in Taunton, Massachusetts, and grew up in very humble beginnings, but at the age of 17, I joined the United States Marine Corps. After that, I was stationed in Camp Pendleton, California, and I was deployed out to the Middle East. After getting back and honorably discharged in 1999, I started working in the wireless construction industry, and I started from the ground up, building cell towers. No pun intended, I climbed the ladder of success. I went from building the cell towers to becoming a foreman to a construction manager, and eventually started my own business in 2007, which has become one of the largest veteran-owned businesses in the state of Massachusetts. In 2013, being maybe a little biased to helping veterans, I created a nonprofit to help veterans, and we've helped veterans in a multitude of different ways. We've helped them from wheelchair ramps to modifying bathrooms to buying veteran suits so they can get jobs. But the most thing, like I said, I'm most proud of, during that time frame, my daughter was born the same day that I started my business. So when you're looking for somebody that takes chances, that's an entrepreneur, that's going to be out there giving their all and not afraid to do something, he's standing in front of you. I had a great job at the time, but the day my daughter was born, she was premature. I walked down the road in Boston, and I put my name on Ashburton Place and created my business that day, and went the second day and gave my notice to my company. And I say that because running for Congress, it's the same exact thing. You have to be out there every single day. You have to be willing to take chances. And there's a lot of things where they ask me, why are you running, Jesse? Why are you running? I feel that we have representation in Washington that's been there far too long, and that's both sides of the aisle. We have people that have been in 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. They've been in forever. When you put the word lifelong, entrenched, and career in front of the word politician, that's not something to be proud of. We shouldn't be proud of that. They have to come out of office, because you're not going to be represented properly by somebody that's been in there that long. You need somebody. I'm a huge advocate for term limits. And the term limit aspect is 6 years. You're in, you're out. That was established from the get-go. That's what our founding fathers wanted. When you're sitting in Congress, any seat, we can put it, but specifically down in Washington, you lose sight of you, and what your best interests are. You're staying in office because you're voting for your best interest at all times. We see right now, you're going to the voting booth November 8th. Everybody in here probably owns a home. We know when we buy real estate, it's location, location, location. November 8th, just remember, inflation, inflation, inflation. We know this inflation right now, record high, 40 years, 8.3. We don't have to look. I've heard every politician, every person talking about it. I don't need to tell you guys. You see it every single day. You see the fuel prices going up. You see the mortgage rates going up. If you have children, your children aren't going to be able to buy homes right now. They can't. Food prices, the basic necessities of life are becoming somewhat unattainable. You're losing money out of your pocket, your 401ks, your savings, people on fixed incomes getting drained every single day. We need people in Congress that will stop the reckless spending that's down there and being able to say no, shut the spigot off. One thing we've been hearing nonstop is the fentanyl issue. I'm a huge supporter of securing our border. I think that's where it starts. Over 80% of illicit drugs comes over that southwest border. Within 24 to 36 hours, it's anywhere in the United States. This used to be a bipartisan issue down in Washington. It's not anymore. It's divided. We have to secure that border, and we have to shut that spigot off. We can rehabilitate. We have to have all the services to help the people here. But before that happens, we need to stop it. We need to stop it at the border, but also support our law enforcement to put an end to it here first. I'm a huge advocate of our law enforcement and public safety. I'm proud to say that I'm the first federal candidate in over 25 years that has the endorsement of the Massachusetts State Police, and I was also endorsed by the National Troopers Coalition. So they understand how much of the advocacy that I will give them down there in Washington. They don't need politicians to have their backs, turn their backs on our law enforcement. They're out there every single day fighting for all of us. So we need to defend them as much as possible also. And I'll leave, I know I got the last minute here, is that I'm being a veteran. Veteran services are a huge priority for me also. We can go down the list of still the issues with veterans right now. We have homelessness, suicide rates that they don't go down. If we notice something with the trend here, we heard somebody else say it, none of this goes down. It consistently goes up. The numbers become worse on majority of all these things. I feel anybody that has served their country, it's not a big amount of people, ladies and gentlemen. There should not be one homeless veteran out there, and there shouldn't be any veterans committing suicide. We need to get them the help that they need on a daily basis every single day, and we need people in Washington to fight for them nonstop. At the end, I thank you for your time, and I'll take questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? And lastly, also running for representative in Congress, Bill Keating. Bill, did you make it here? Yep. There he is. Bill.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone that is running, putting their names, reputation, and their families on the line in a public sense, and all the people that attended here. Thinking back with some of the things I heard just since I've been here, but it brought me back to when I was a young boy. And one of the things that I did, and my father and I did together, is he was a veterans agent for over 3 decades in our town, and he would have me in his car those days that they would travel, and sometimes I would go an hour or two, different parts of the Commonwealth, and we had great time to talk together, but I also learned about the work he was doing, even as a boy. And I learned about public service doing that. It was easy dealing with a myriad of veterans issues because in our family, we were a Gold Star family. And we know loss, we know what it does to families for generations, and we know how important service to country is. But I think the thing that drew me more to public service is the fact that seeing my father work with people he was just coming to know was really special. Some of them strangers initially, and people that would end up being friends, people that you were able to help. I think my family, part of the DNA is public service. My dad was a police officer before he was a veterans agent. My brother is a retired police detective. My niece and her husband are police officers right here in Cape Cod. And they do work, in 2 Cape Cod communities, helping to keep everyone safe. So I think that I was drawn to public service initially as a state representative. I learned about legislating, the nuts and bolts of it. I learned about working with people in the state house. When I went to the state senate, I learned something else. I learned about independence. I learned about standing up when things aren't going right. And I took on the most powerful person in Massachusetts politically at the time, Bill Bulger, and I ran against him for president of the Senate and took him on because he was thwarting democracy in some of the actions he took. And I had to stand up even against someone as powerful as that and someone that was a member of my own party. I also, as a district attorney, had the opportunity to serve in that capacity, working with our own police force, but also making sure and getting greater sense in terms of the enforcement, how important it was to keep people and families safe, how important it was to work with victims, and how important it was to give people a second chance in life as well. And I think the programs that I did in that respect reflect that enormously. So I took this experience with me to Congress, and it made me a better congressman by light years, learning about legislating hands-on, learning about standing up and being independent, even against your own party, learning about how important people's safety is, how important it is when you have the power to change lives that you do it with kindness and good faith. We're now facing some of the greatest threats I have seen in our country in decades. Some historians are saying the threats are greater in terms of our individual rights and our values than we've faced ever before. And this is disproportionately affecting Cape Cod and the islands, because we have one of the older populations in the whole country outside of Florida. No surprise to anyone here, I don't think. But also a population that's really essentially invested and has invested personally on these individual rights and freedoms that are hard-earned. Social Security. The Republican leadership in the House and the Senate just in the last few weeks said Social Security is going to be in the chopping blocks if they're in power again. They're going to raise the age, they're going to diminish the benefits, and they're going to ultimately privatize it. I've worked to extend Social Security and make it more solvent. One of the greatest escalations in inflationary things that are affecting all our lives are the cost of prescription drugs. And Medicare people have been struggling with that. People on insulin are paying over $1,000, some of them, a month, just for the insulin. And they're not taking what they're supposed to, rationing out and endangering their own health. Well, after a long time, finally, fighting Big Pharma, we were able to change the laws, and we are going to have competitive and reduced prescription drug pricing for Medicare people. We're also going to take the out-of-pocket costs and put a ceiling on that once and for all, so they can afford to live and not make decisions about whether or not to take care of their health or to take care of the heat. We are sitting there also looking at other issues that are very difficult to imagine we're discussing. So many of the people on the other side of the aisle voted against that prescription drug reduction, voted against capping out-of-pocket expenses, voted against helping people on insulin with a sealed price. And they did it because they said the government doesn't belong in health care. And they did it at the same time they were saying the government does belong in the doctor's office, where decisions on reproductive decisions should be made by a woman and her physician and her family and no government. I don't think Mitch McConnell should be making those kind of decisions. It's 5 minutes? Well, I'll just wrap up by telling you, in Cape Cod, it is unique. Whether it's keeping the ferries running when they're about to stop, and working with Tom Cahere, as I did, to change the commuter status of those and putting $12 million in so our ferries didn't stop, keeping our restaurants from shutting down. I personally was a leader in trying to get the restaurant revitalization, brought $9 million, 186 restaurants right here in Cape Cod. Small businesses, which I had for a while myself, starting one, 7,791 were helped because we stepped up to the plate during the COVID pandemic and provided paycheck protection. We did that much with opposition, unfortunately, from the other side. So we have much to look forward to in the future if I have a few more minutes, I would have gone into that. But remember this, these are difficult times. These are difficult challenges. So we can criticize and we can agonize. We should galvanize our resources and move forward and make sure that the future is going to be bright. This is the best country in the world. We have the solution to almost every difficult problem we have, and I, if given the opportunity, will continue to fight when I have to, even against the odds, and I'll continue to work with people to get things done so that when someone else has the experience of driving around with their dad sometime in the next generation, they'll be able to understand public service is a good thing. Government can be a good thing. And when, I'm looking forward to that day, mercifully, when we'll have that kind of dialogue in this country again. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. At this point, we're entering into our question and answer period. Are there any questions for the candidates or comments from the audience? There you go. Could you mind coming up to the microphone? Or bring the microphone to her.
Okay, I have a question to Ms. Buckley. Ms. Buckley, you said you have a vision for the sheriff's position. As you heard, the people you deal with went through the process of being committed through the judicial system, right? So you don't get a clean sheet of paper. You get a criminal in your office. What is your vision for that particular criminal?
Thank you so much for the question. So as we understand about our jail, the sheriff doesn't pick who comes in, and the sheriff does not decide when people are released. And the people who serve sentences at the jail are sentenced for no more than 2.5 years. They are considered low-level crimes. So the thing that we know for certain is that everyone in the jail is either going to serve a longer sentence at state prison or is coming back into our community. That's not a choice. So the vision is that we use the resources, the $30 million budget, to focus on correction, rehabilitation, and treatment so that when the person is released, they have the opportunity to rebuild their lives after they have paid their debt and not become a statistic in the revolving door of repeat offenders. That is the goal. That is how we spend our tax money productively. That is how we make sure that the sheriff's job is being done. We keep people from coming back.
Is the treatment determined by the judge?
No, the treatment is the job of the sheriff. The judge has no more authority over the inmate once the inmate is sentenced to the jail. The sheriff is responsible for the conditions of confinement. The sheriff will decide whether we spend only 1.7% of our budget on mental health, or we devote and prioritize our resources to address the mental health crisis that we are facing. The sheriff will decide whether we provide medication-assisted treatment and treatment for addiction or not. That's why this election is so important.
Could I have another question to Representative Buckley?
Right. I'd like to ask Mr. Lozon? Am I saying it? Lozon. I'm sorry. I wanted to pronounce your name correctly. I'd like to ask you and Mr. Higgins, Attorney Higgins, if you are pro-choice and if you agree with the Supreme Court's latest decision.
So that is a complicated issue, obviously. Can't really answer it in a sound bite, but I'll say that I personally am pro-life and legally pro-choice with certain restrictions. So Massachusetts law, there's a couple of things that I disagree with currently, such as allowing minors to get abortions without parental consent. And I'm certainly not in favor of late-term abortions unless the mother's health is at risk. But Massachusetts law is clear at this time, and it's not going to change. I do agree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade because it is a state's issue rather than a federal issue. And the 9th and 10th Amendments make it clear that the states and the people decide rights that are not explicitly in the Constitution. So that was the right decision.
Thank you, Ms. What was your name? Cynthia, thank you. I understand that that's an important issue to voters. And what I would say is this. The district attorney's role, the job that I'm seeking from the voters, is a job to enforce the laws of Massachusetts, and that's what I will do. That protection is already built into our laws. In fact, there are rules within the law that the district attorney may not do certain things to interfere with that. I will follow the law. That's my job. What I won't do up here is try and stir emotions and talk about any personal opinion, even if I had one, on the topic to pander for votes. I won't do that. This is a professional job. It's not one of creating law. That is for our legislators and for the people to do through electing those legislators. The job of the district attorney is to enforce the laws. We've seen a change of that across the country. We've seen no prosecution lists. We've seen orders, meaning policies to the lower ADAs. You may not ask for bail on this crime. I don't believe in that. I believe in enforcing the law, in looking at the case reasonably, the person, their history of lack of history, and giving discretion to those ADAs to treat people fairly. I can tell you in 13 years, all the cases I've prosecuted in district, superior, I've met with families of homicide victims, sexual assault survivors, and my role has never been to weigh in on that issue. My role has been to support victims, prosecute the case and the offender. Thank you.
Yes, it's hard to stand up. I would first like to preface my remarks by introducing myself. I was born on Cape Cod 90 years ago. And I left Cape Cod and I came back here 22 years ago. I have a college degree. I have an advanced degree. I ran a farm for 47 years, both in New Hampshire and here. I have a grandson who was shot in the head during a robbery attempt 3 years ago. I have a granddaughter who is struggling with addiction. So I share much of what everyone in this country is sharing. My question is, and this is to all the candidates, I would like to, well, I should ask it first. Please bring back respect, decency, consensus, and everything that we as human beings want to see in each other. Please bring this back to our system. Otherwise, I have fears that it will not survive.
Does anybody want to comment or?
I want to let someone else hold the mic.
I have a question for Donna. Hi, Donna. I understand that one of the planks on your platform is to open up halfway houses within the neighborhoods in the greater Barnstable area. And from the research that I have done, the recidivism rate, if I can say it correctly, the recidivism rate for many of those houses, and the numbers are not really well documented, is something like 49.7% within 3 years from felons who have been in those houses, and they've gone back to jail. Why would you support having the houses, number one, within the communities where the impact in the communities is oftentimes not positive? And why is that? Why would you support that as one of your planks?
Thank you. Can you repeat it? If I don't do it fairly, let me know, but I believe that the question was a statement that one of my platforms is having halfway houses in communities. Okay, so I have to differ with you because it is not. I do not support that. It is not. It is not. Unless it was hacked today, it is not. I do not support that. I have never said that. I believe that we need to have pre-release programming within the jail, and I believe that we need to create a continuum of service with community providers who come into the jail and work with people in anticipation of them being released, so that when someone is released, they don't walk out into the street like the deer in the headlights, that they know where they're going to work, where they're going to live, which AA meeting they're going to go to, which medical provider they're going to meet with. I have never stated anything about halfway houses in our community, so I'm sorry if there's a misunderstanding about that. Yes, that is there. That is there. I will. Yes, I will. I would be happy to do that. So our sheriff's office is the only sheriff's office in New England, and only one of about 140 in the entire country, that maintains a civil agreement with the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency of the federal government. It is an agreement that allows sheriff's employees to be deputized as ICE agents to perform civil, not criminal, immigrations and customs enforcement work. So the first issue I have with that is that is a diversion from the core mission of the sheriff's office. But the bigger issue, and the issue that has become an ideology as opposed to a fact-based conversation, is that what the ICE agreement does, or let me say it this way, what the sheriff's office has portrayed the ICE agreement to be is not, in fact, what it is. As I stated in the earlier question, when someone is released from the jail, they are released by an order of the court, whether they are found not guilty, they finish their sentence, or they make bail. Sheriff does not pick who leaves and when they leave. That is determined by the court, and that applies to people who are undocumented as well as people who are here lawfully. The court determines when someone is no longer able to be held in custody. So when you hear my opponent or the sheriff talking about this person had a murder charge, or this person had a rape charge, or this person had this charge, that applies to every single person who is released from the jail, whether they are undocumented or here lawfully. The sheriff's office has currently used the ICE agreement to just target undocumented immigrants. But what they are not telling you is that is the same process that applies to everyone who is released from the jail. The court said you can no longer hold them, they must be released. So there is no purpose in having that agreement, because it takes away from the core mission of the sheriff, which is correction, rehabilitation, and treatment inside the jail. It has nothing to do with public safety. The sheriff had no ability to hold those people any longer.
And it doesn't make sense in a world when we need all of our resources to focus on the job we're supposed to be doing, to sign up to do somebody else's job. That's ICE's job. It's ICE's responsibility to determine what level of enforcement they will have for civil immigration issues in our community. It's not the sheriff's job.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for the explanation, Donna. Like I said, Donna's a very smart woman, and I appreciate her answer to this as well. Here is what the core mission of the Sheriff's Office, it's to keep us safe. It's not just running the jail, it's public safety. It's keeping you safe, you safe, you safe, our whole community safe. I've been doing that for 26 years of my career, okay? Here's exactly how the system works in practice. Prisoner comes in, as Donna mentioned, delivered by the court. They've appeared before the judge. There has been a finding in a pretrial case, probable cause, that they have committed a crime, or in the post-sentencing, that there is guilt beyond a reasonable doubt they committed a crime. They've been sent to the court. They have appeared before the court. There is no constitutional crisis under the Lund decision of 2017, I think it was. Person comes into the court. They do a warrant check on every single person that comes into the court. They take him, Stephen Exaros, 5/1/1969, because he's only 53 years old. They check and see, FBI check, all 50 states check, all U.S. territories check, comes back. If he's clear, then the next step is, if he's foreign born, then what they will do is they will ask for identification, proof, to identify whether or not the person has legal status in the country. If the person does not have the ability to present that information, it's another warrant check. So they go from this computer to that computer. How long does that take? Hardly any time at all. So if the person has a warrant out of Pennsylvania, before that person's released, no matter what the court says up here, and they don't care what Barnstable Court says, if the person has a warrant out of Pennsylvania, the Sheriff's Office contacts Pennsylvania and they say, hey, this person's going to be released on May 1st. Come on up here and get him if you want. What will happen is, if the district attorney's office in the given state wants him, they will send up a team, they'll pick him up, and they'll bring him back. They are released to the custody of that law enforcement agency that holds paper on them, that has a warrant. If the person has a detainer from ICE, and when they're about to be released, if they establish that there's a detainer, instead of picking up the phone and calling the Pennsylvania State Police, they pick up the phone and they call ICE. And they say, person's going to be here. If you want them, come and get them. Now, here's the thing. If ICE doesn't come and get them, they get released on exactly the date that the court prescribes. Because, as Donna stated, they have no legal authority under the minimus from the court to hold them one day longer than what's on the thing. But if ICE comes to get them, they are turned over to the custody of ICE the same exact way as if the warrant was out of the state of New Hampshire. Or if it was they're being held down here, there's a warrant for them in Guam, and Guam decides to get them because it's a capital murder case or something like that. It's a warrant check, it's a phone call. What they find is that the majority of the people who they do the checks on, the majority of them, they're able to establish over the course of time that they have legal status here. They have a green card. They have lineage that allows them to be here. So when I spoke to the sheriff and asked him, I said, how many total people are actually remanded to the custody of ICE per year? He told me it was between, on average, 3 to 6 people per year. And we're getting all worked up over that. Now, here's the thing. When you look at the charges on the people, I just went through, Donna and I just had a debate, and I went through a list of the charges. Just in the month of August, and I wish I had the list in front of me, fourth offense or greater, OUI. There was another case that was in there that involved strangulation, assault and battery domestic ×2, assault and battery on a police officer. And then the third one, I just can't remember, but it was another equally horrific crime. So remember what I said earlier about the job of the sheriff is public safety? My experience, my 26 years of experience, all that training that I've had teaches me that it does not contribute to the greater safety of someone from Cape Cod if I take that person and I have the legal authority to turn them over to federal authorities, and I don't do it. Instead, I release them to Main Street, Cape Cod. I just can't do it. Now, the other thing is, the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office remains, yes, the only sheriff's office in New England that has this agreement. The Bristol County Sheriff's Office had the agreement. It was taken away by ICE. You'll hear two different reasons why. The Biden administration will say they took it away because of negative allegations against the treatment of people there. And then you're also going to hear other people saying that it was a political move because of Sheriff Hodgson's involvement with the Trump campaign. Plymouth County, just within the past year, gave up their ICE program. I spoke to Sheriff McDonald. Sheriff McDonald holds federal prisoners at his facility. And he said he's getting harassed enough over that he decided that it wasn't worth it. Now, Massachusetts, the Sheriff's Office, our Barnstable County Sheriff's Office, is not the only agency in the state that still maintains this agreement. The Massachusetts Department of Correction maintains an agreement, and they're much larger than all of our sheriff's offices combined. So that's from where I sit. That's the skinny of it, and I hope that that answers the question that you had. I believe that maintaining that agreement will improve the safety because it will take people, as I mentioned, all you have to do is go to the sheriff's website, bsheriff.net, and you can look up, every month they put up the charges of the people that referred. Now, those aren't the people that are removed. Those are the people that are referred, and then ICE determines whether or not they have legal status. If they have legal status, they're released. There's no legal authority to do anything with them other than return them to the street, right? But if they have that legal authority, then they are referred to ICE, and then it's up to ICE. If ICE doesn't come and pick them up on Thursday, May 1st, they're released to the street on Thursday, May 1st, because you only can hold the person as long as the minimus from the court allows you to. Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying is,
Let her finish and then go on.
I'm just confused. If someone creates a horrific crime, this is, not, hasn't been proven, but they've strangled somebody or they've killed somebody or whatever, and they're illegally in this country, the court has to let them go? Is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am.
Well, then why would the court let them out into the street if they've done something horrific and they set a bail and the person is in jail until their hearing? I don't understand why. You're saying that right now, if you have an illegal immigrant and that person has committed a terrible crime, that they'll just be let go onto Main Street because the sheriff's office can't hold them in the jail?
Upon completion of their sentence, ma'am, because once the court has determined that the date of release, and then there's good time and other stuff that gets factored in, then there's no legal authority to hold them 1 minute past that.
Past the 2.5 years?
But if they're here illegally, if they're here without legal status.
Okay, here's what I don't understand.
I'm sorry.
I thought that in the Barnstable House of Correction, that those were crimes that were not of that level. If someone committed a horrific crime of violence, don't they go to like a state penitentiary?
Not always, but the other thing too is you have people that are coming in that are awaiting trial. So, I mean, for instance, 125, so we're not going to use his name. When I mention 125, everybody knows who I'm talking about. That awful man that committed that heinous crime against Officer Gannon. He was held in the Barnstable County Correctional Facility.
Well, they weren't going to let him go. Would they let him go?
No. In his case,
I guess that's my point.
Because he was held on no bail, but there are people that are held there with severe crimes who are held on bail, and then there are people that are held there as well. You have people that assault and battery domestic ×3 who are sentenced to less than 2.5 years or less by the court.
But isn't it the court? Isn't that a court issue, not the sheriff's issue? Isn't it the sheriff's job to get these people either better or keep them in the jail?
You can't keep them 1 minute past the time that the court allows you to, or when they show up and they present, if bail is presented, they have to be released, unless you have a warrant, or in the case of someone here without legal authority, you have an immigration detainer. You have other legal means to not release them from custody.
Okay, I don't want to hog the microphone. I don't understand if someone's committed a heinous crime, why they wouldn't be in a state penitentiary. I think there's something wrong with the system.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a quick question on bail. I've been hearing a lot about cashless bail. Does that exist in our state yet? I mean, if bail is bail, right? I mean, you go to Chicago, they have cashless bail, and people commit a crime, and they're let right back out. I want to know, is it coming to Massachusetts? Do we have cashless bail right now? And if not, do you see it coming?
We look at their ties to the community. Some people have strong ties here, a home, a family, a job. Others are vacationers, or they may be here as summer workers, or they may have just been passing through, whatever. We look at the seriousness of the crime, their history of defaults, and whether we, as a reasonable look at their record and the facts of the case, if we think they're going to return for their court date, because we can't get them to trial if they don't return. So we make a decision whether to ask for bail. Now, the judge actually sets the bail. There is already case law in this state. We do live in a great state. There's already rules on this subject. It's called Commonwealth versus Brangden. And it says that the court and the parties have to take into consideration the defendant's means when setting a bail. Meaning the bail of a homeless person would be much different than the bail of a millionaire, right? So it can't be arbitrary. The bail has to be related to the case, the facts, their history of defaults, and also the potential penalty they're facing. If someone's charged with a capital crime, someone charged with murder, we're not going to say, oh, personal recognizance, go ahead and walk out the door. They have no incentive to remain on the Cape, in the state, or in the country. They have all the incentive in the world to run. That's what we look at. Now, on your more minor crimes, we might ask for bail if they have a history of defaults, or if they've indicated to police or that they're going to run, or they ran from the police, actually, before the police were able to arrest them. We have to look at these things. Now, the cases are few and far between that we ask for bail on. The judge sets it. However, another part of the answer to your question is, yes, there is a movement about to not ask for cash bail, to eliminate it, talking about disparities in income between people, talking about it's unfair to hold someone on bail before they've been convicted yet. The reason cash bail is set is because they have an incentive to run from their history or the penalty that they're facing. Our calling is to be reasonable in our viewing of the case and when we ask for bail. It is not on every case. It is on few and far between. And we only do it when we think it's necessary. My opponent has announced several positions on bail. The first was that he would instruct his ADAs they're not to ask for cash bail on any misdemeanor crime. And I can tell you, while misdemeanors sound friendly and gentle, they're not all. It includes domestic assault and battery. It includes assault and battery on our police officers, resisting arrest, running from those officers. It includes crimes where bail sometimes might be necessary. I voiced my concern publicly to voters. I voiced it to the unions I spoke to. And my opponent changed his position with no announcement, no public announcement, and changed and tweaked his website to say nonviolent, inserted into each paragraph, only nonviolent misdemeanors. There is a movement to get rid of cash bail. I don't believe in it. I believe we are to use it reasonably, few and far between, and the arbiter of that, the one who looks at whether it's reasonable or not, is the judge. They set it, we're bound by case law, and the public can watch everything we do, and that's a crucial part of our justice system, is that our courtrooms are open to the public. So you can sit there on Monday and see what we do with the 20 cases we're arraigning and see how many we actually ask for bail on. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
I just want to expand on what this lovely 90-year-old woman, born 90 years ago, that makes her 90, still got that. In a few years, I'll be with you. Hang in there. Nobody answered her question. It really wasn't a question. She was seeking comments about decency and proper way of doing things, politeness and whatnot. I have a specific question in the same area that I hope I can get an answer to. Last week, 5 police officers were shot. The worst case was right here in not our neighboring, but our very close to New England state of Connecticut. I heard a few nice words from candidate Brown. I'd like to hear from Keating, Brown, Lozone. Well, I know what Zaris is going to say. But what is your feeling about this? The fact that police are denigrated and have been denigrated for 2 years. And it comes from both sides, but mostly from the other side. I voted for Trump. I'm a incorrigible. No, never mind. Anyway, I'd like to hear just a brief remark from each of you about our police.
Now, well, that's loud here. Well, I stated earlier that when I would talk to the police unions or anybody, what I was talking about was retention, recruitment, staffing issues, the typical things, mental health issues that officers deal with on a daily basis, staffing shortages, everything. And as I was talking to them through the last 18 months, the one thing that they said to me before they did give me their endorsement was all they want was advocacy in Washington and at the State House. And they thought and they feel that I will give them that because they do feel, as you just stated, and as many people probably feel, that a lot of our politicians on both sides of the aisle have turned their back on law enforcement, 100%. So, as I stated earlier, though, too, I am the first federal candidate in over 25 years to get that endorsement. So I'll just leave it at that. Huge advocate of our law enforcement, and it's pretty simple on that aspect.
Thank you very much, and my strong feelings for what you shared with us, your tragedies personally, and I think it was working with victims that drew me to much of what I did in the legislature and a DA and as a congressman. I think I mentioned my father was a police officer. My brother was a police officer, a retired detective now. My niece is a police officer. Her husband's a police officer. I had my own police unit attached to my DA's office. I also had experience where a police officer in the line of duty would be critically injured. See, there we go. This answered the question there. I think it was Siri trying to answer that question somewhere. But I waited in the emergency room with family members, other police officers, in instances where they lost their life. When I was young and my brother worked the midnight shift before cell phones, my bedroom was the one that had the phone in it. And when the phone would ring in the middle of the night, I had the worst fear that something happened to my brother. So I know firsthand about police officers. I've been endorsed by the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, but endorsements, I don't think, mean as much as your own personal experience and feelings. Police officers, many of them put on a uniform. It's not easy. It's not easy. You're differentiated from the public. You get more scrutiny. It's a tough job. But people are called to it, as my family was, and it's important that we support them. I also am very close to the Capitol Police. I was there on January 6th. I saw the trauma. Police officers lost their lives. And I can tell you in personal conversations, they're traumatized now, many of them. They were in hand-to-hand combat with people with lead pipes, bear spray. A woman police officer had acid dumped all over her face. 140 Capitol Police officers were injured that day. I would say this, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be partisan, but I just can't help myself. You support Trump. Trump said 2 weeks ago that if he's elected president, he would pardon all those people that attacked the Capitol. I feel that very strongly because I feel for those Capitol police officers that I work with. So I don't know what more I can have. I have the greatest respect. I have love for police officers. They're my family. Thank you.
I think the answer to the gentleman is quite simple. The people have forgotten the golden rule. It's that simple. Do unto others as you want done unto yourself.
I just want to address your question personally because one of the most difficult things over the last couple of years has been the fact that the conversation about whether or not you support police or you don't support police has seemed to break down along party lines. And that if you are a Democrat, you are automatically assumed to be anti-police and you support defund the police. I can only speak for myself. I have spent my entire career working with law enforcement. I have fought side by side with them to give them the tools they need to do their job. I do not support defunding the police. I support law enforcement. I believe that when you ask someone to put their life on the line, we owe them the highest obligation to give them what they need to do the job. I have police officers in my family. My brother-in-law is a police chief outside of Boston. My brother-in-law is a retired police chief, police officer on the Cape. So it is not a Democrat and Republican issue, and my response to your question is I ask all of us when we go to vote not to just assume that that's where we come from because we decided to run as a Democrat or a Republican.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank all of the candidates here tonight. Just excellent, excellent candidates, and I love the choice on both sides of the aisle, and we certainly have some great candidates to choose from. I guess speaking about law enforcement, I'm just going to follow what you just mentioned, Ms. Buckley, and ask you a question. The K-9 unit for the Barnstable Sheriff's Department has a very long and historic, invaluable service to supporting not only law enforcement, but missing people, people with dementia, fugitives that are fleeing from justice, not to mention an integral part of the Sheriff's Department when it comes to finding narcotics and drugs and illegal paraphernalia. My question would be, as a candidate that supports law enforcement, would you support such a valuable resource to the police officers if you're elected sheriff in keeping the K-9 unit? And if so, how would you expand it? Thank you.
I have to go home and check my website because I heard today, too, that someone said that I was going to disband the K-9 unit. I've never said that. Leadership is about priorities. There are some tough decisions to be made with our sheriff's office over the next 6 years. We have a boat, but at the same time that we were dispatching personnel and spending money on that boat, we were not spending money on mental health, and 3 people died in the jail. Think of the trauma to the staff who are short-staffed and working forced overtime shifts to fill the jail. At the same time, we were sending correction officers to the police academy to be trained as municipal police officers, while other correction officers were being forced to work multiple shifts in a row, and while inmates were dying in the jail. There is not an easy answer. I am not going to say to you that I'm going to keep or expand it, and I'm not saying that I'm going to do away with it. But we need to prioritize. There are many towns on the Cape that have their own K-9 departments and do not rely on the sheriff's office. We have the concept of mutual aid. It could be just as easy to call Barnstable to have helped with the incident in Falmouth the other night as it was to call the sheriff's office. We have to look at what the consequence of staffing the canine unit is. If the consequence is that the staff at the jail who are working inside are unsafe because there aren't enough of them, or that people who drive miles and tens of miles to go and visit people in the jail are turned away during normal visiting hours because there's not enough staff in the jail, there are a lot of decisions that we need to make in order to perform the core mission of our sheriff's office. So all of these side things that do not relate to the job of the sheriff, which is care, correction, rehabilitation, and treatment, and keeping our staff in the jail safe, we have to look at those, and we have to prioritize, and we have to see whether or not we have enough resources and enough people. And I'll close with this. The biggest challenge at our jail right now is staffing. And if any of you have been an employer, you know how difficult it is to recruit staff if you don't have a clear description of what you're asking them to do. We need to recruit correction officers. That's not a canine, that's not a boat operator, and it's not a municipal police officer. So where are we going to advertise? And where are these people actually going to be able to do this work if we don't have enough staff in the jail? So I ask us all to think about this, because this is what this election is about for the next 6 years. And it has to be grounded in the core mission, which is correction, rehabilitation, and treatment. I do not want to be the sheriff who lets someone out of the jail who didn't get treated for their addiction, who got no services related to correction, rehabilitation, and treatment, and then harms one of us sitting in this room. That is not my vision for our next 6 years. Thank you.
I'll be brief. Donna, thank you very much. And Donna's exactly right. There is absolutely, without question, there is a staffing crisis at the jail. And I can guarantee you, if I'm blessed with your endorsement, I'm going to become the #1 recruiter on all of Cape Cod to fill those staffing needs. But here's the thing. The core mission of the Sheriff's Department is care, custody, and control, but it is not the only mission of the Sheriff's Office. To prove that, when I was sat on the legislative conference committee that delivered you in 2020, 2 years ago, the police reform law, under POST, we established the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. I was one of 6 legislators out of everyone in Beacon Hill who wrote the language on this. We called it the Peace Officer Standards and Training, not Police Officer Standards and Training, because of deputy sheriffs. We included in chapter, I believe it was chapter 6E, right in the definitions, under the definition of law enforcement officer, it says, by name, deputy sheriffs. So deputy sheriffs are authorized law enforcement officers under a law that was passed 2 years ago with the endorsement of all 200 members of the legislature, and it was signed into law by Governor Baker. It is not the care, custody, and control, I agree 100%, is the core mission, but it is not the only mission, because again, what I said earlier, it's about the larger aspect of public safety, and that includes providing canine patrols and additional patrols to help assist our municipal and state law enforcement to keep you safe in your neighborhoods as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you could just line up right over here, we'll take a quick picture.
Yeah.
That's the foul.
Do you have? Would you like to mic for a second? No, I think it looks like people there. Are there any further questions? Oh, we have one over here, Nancy.
Okay. I have a question for the sheriff's candidates, please.
One more question? We have one more question?
Yeah, for both of you. For everyone. I'm curious about your recruitment strategy for Should I talk? Okay. So my question was for both the sheriff's candidates. How do you both talked about the staffing issues? How do you plan to? What's your recruitment plan?
Johnny, you can go first, or I can go first. Okay, thank you. So the question that was asked was regarding what the plan would be for recruiting to fill the staffing issues at the sheriff's office. Right now, recruiting is being run by the HR director. HR does a great job being HR. I believe in taking a staff member, a uniformed staff member, sending them to professional recruiting school and teaching them the skills that they need so that they can go out in our community and they can find able, qualified candidates to come in. That's going to require an investment of time. It's going to require an investment of money. But let's face it, nothing gets fixed unless you make an investment up front. So what I believe that we need to do is we need to just put that effort in. And the other thing I'm looking to do as well is to build on my relationships that I've built. I have great relationships with Secretary Poppy from the Department of Veteran Services, with General Keefe, the Adjutant General of the Massachusetts National Guard, as well as with President John Cox at 4Cs, and many of our many of our school superintendents to try and locate younger people, returning veterans, and other folks, as well as working with Mass Hire to try and find people and show them the reason why they should come work for the sheriff's office. Thank you.
So as I said earlier, staffing is one of the major challenges that we face at the jail. But what I also need to remind us all about is that we can't begin recruiting unless we understand the mission. And the sheriff's job starts where the police ends. We can't recruit for people if we don't have a description about what we're asking them to do. How do they help us further our mission? And one of the biggest challenges that I saw while I was working at the sheriff's office, one of the biggest deterrents to recruitment is the staff. Because they are asked currently to do an impossible job, they are not helping with recruiting. And until we talk with the staff and create working conditions where they feel engaged and valued and where they are not being required to work 2 shifts in a row. Can you imagine what it's like to work an 8-hour shift, have plans to go home and be told you can't on repeated occasions during a week? That is demoralizing. We need to address the staff. We need to work with them, and we need to be clear about what it is, what job we are doing. And then we work with our community partners. We work with the community colleges. We work with the veterans associations. We go outside of the normal boxes to recruit. I would like to be able to use the staff. They need to get to a place where they want to invite people to come. And we also need to start thinking about housing. We can't recruit people to come and work here if they have no place to live. So we need to think about how we approach collective bargaining, and we need to work with our local and state partners to rethink those challenges, because none of us, whether it's the sheriff's office or if you own your own business, we're all having problems with people being unable to live here, so they're unable to work here. So there are many factors that go into recruiting. We need to look at all of them, and we need I want to use these next 6 years to start to think about out-of-the-box solutions to how we get to be able to perform the services we need to perform.
Folks, we're running out of time. I want to give a final thank you again to the candidates and wish you all best of luck on election night. So this concludes tonight's meeting, and on behalf of the WBCA, I wish you all a good night.
Lousy timekeeper, John. You were way over there. They didn't see you. Every once in a while, they get an eye.
But you know, we can propose. It's only one
No,
meeting.
it could take 30 years. That last one.
Oh, thank you, guy. Great job. It's kind of like herding cats. You don't know it. Yeah, thank you.